From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Heads Meats and Grocery is much more than a grocery store. We carry a full line of quality meats, local and organic vegetables, and a large variety of fish, Green Mountain Smart Control pellet grills, and a full deli case of sandwiches and side dishes.
Well, good morning, everyone. If just in case you're wondering, I do these fire updates for the perimeters and the distances to the different communities, and along with those heat signatures every morning. So just be sure to check in the morning for those updates. Also, on the 24-hour channel, I have included the same maps that I'm going to be showing you now that will update every hour or so, at least, not necessarily 100% with the fire perimeters. I mean, they change a little bit here, but the heat signatures coming from those fires, those will be updated on a regular basis here throughout the day on the 24-hour channel. So be sure to check that out. That's on Roku, Amazon Fire Stick. You can also check it on YouTube. Check out that live channel as well, and not to mention on weathernorcal.com. In the meantime, we take a look at the latest fire heat signatures, and this is, of course, the satellite detecting the heat from the fire. So of course you've got the Smith River complex where we're seeing the biggest cluster here, but this is pretty much where most of the fires are, and it's detecting most of those fires. Now we take a look at not only the fire perimeters here, kind of see these little areas of red. That's where all the different fires are, right? Then of course we've got this legend right here. So when you see red, what that tells you is that's fairly recent data within the last 6 hours or so. Then we start getting into the yellows and oranges. That's usually about 24 to even 48 hours old, and then anything beyond that is 3, 4, 5, 6 days old. All right, so let's take a look at some of the different fires around here and see what we got going on. So we'll start with the head fire, and this is good to see. The satellite, at least, is not detecting any major heat signatures coming from the head fire. This is a few days old that we're looking at here, and we're not seeing any recent activity coming from the fire. So when we're talking about the distances from the fire, they haven't changed much over the last few days. Meanwhile, we take you to the south side. Again, those haven't changed much either. You got the Scott fire here, and the fires up to the north between the head fire and the Scott fire. And once again, we're just not seeing any red there, indicating that we're not seeing any recent activity with those fires. Meanwhile, we take you out to the U-Fish fire, and it looks like we are seeing plenty of activity here with the U-Fish fire, and not to mention the Malone fire as well. But overall, you can see that we're not seeing it move any closer to at least the community of Happy Camp. Both these fires are approximately 6.5 miles from Happy Camp at this point. Meanwhile, we take you onto the Deep fire, and this is good too. We haven't seen much activity from the Deep fire over the last few days either. Most recent was a few days ago, and it was on the south side of the fire. It had moved a little bit closer to the Trinity Alps Resort. But again, since we haven't seen any recent activity here, we're not seeing it really move any closer to the Trinity Alps Resort or to Coffee Creek, Trinity Center, or Covington Mill for that matter. And of course, it hasn't moved any closer to these communities and along Highway 299 for Helena, Junction City, or Weaverville. Let's take you off to the Smith River complex. There's some interesting changes that have gone with the fire, and when we're talking about the fire perimeter. So this fire perimeter is pretty much the same, and of course it's going to give you the same distance to Hiuchi, not to mention Crescent City and Smith River. But the Smith River complex at this point, the only fire perimeter is right here. All of the other fire perimeters, for some reason, are no longer available. Now, I'm not exactly sure why that is, but we can still show you the latest heat signatures coming in from this fire. And you can still see a lot of red. Looks like on the outer perimeter of this fire here for the most part. So we're still seeing a lot of that activity here. As you may know, earlier on Thursday, there was an evacuation order for the town of Gas Key. So of course, we're seeing that fire kind of grow a little bit here closer to the community there. In the meantime, we take you to the south here, and what we're seeing here is the Perch fire, and lots of red on the map here indicating a lot of recent activity, but it really hasn't moved much closer to the town of Orleans. All right, let's go and take you out to Hoopa, and not to mention Willow Creek. This is the Lone Fire, and I've been watching the Lone Fire very closely, and we have not seen any recent activity. You see this gray color? I mean, that's getting into the 5-6 days old. So again, no recent activity here from the fire. You can kind of get a closer perspective of how close that northwest edge of the fire perimeter is to the south part of Hoopa. But again, overall, it hasn't grown any closer over the last several days. Here's a look at the pilot fire. You can see the south end of the fire is where we're seeing most of the activity with that fire here, not to mention the west side as well. But again, not any closer. High and Palm 5.7, 11.8 to Mad River, and Dinsmore about 8.9 miles. Here's a look at the lone lost fire that is, and we're getting into the 4 or 5 days old as far as any heat detection coming in from the fire. So no recent activity there, which means it hasn't moved any closer to any of these communities. All right, let's change gears and start talking about the smoke. And the smoke, really most of it is coming from the Smith River, or the, I always forget the name of that. Yes, it's the Smith River Complex. I always want to call it 6. It's the Smith River Complex. But there you can see, I mean, really dense smoke here as we go into tonight, especially for the northwest side of Siskiyou County, and not to mention into Del Norte County. Now, what we're seeing here as we take you into Saturday morning, we're still seeing a lot of that smoke here. But notice, we're just not getting much in the way of smoke for Trinity County, the Valley, or even off to the east. There's a little bit of haze, but most of the smoke is in the vicinity of the fires. Okay, so let's kind of switch gears. We're not going to talk about the fires anymore. We're going to talk about the overall forecast. And the thunderstorms we saw last night and yesterday evening, those are a thing of the past now. And the good news is there are no more thunderstorms in the forecast through the middle of next week. It's looking like toward the end of next week into the next weekend, potential for more showers and thunderstorms, which we'll get into that here in a second. Highs will be near normal. They're going to be kind of going up and down a little bit here. But the normal high in the valley, for example, is in the mid to upper 90s. That's about where we're going to be for the next 7 to 10 days, which means there's just no major heat waves in sight. I mean, I'm not even seeing it way down the line here. All right, so your hour-by-hour forecast today. Temperatures low to mid 90s in the valley, a little bit cooler than it was yesterday. And for the mountains, look at that, sunny skies, no showers, no thunderstorms in the forecast. Temperatures in the low to mid 80s. So yeah, it looks pretty nice here. So let's take a look at Futurecast. Here's a look at today. There you can see no thunderstorms. A couple of pop-up cumulus clouds, but that's really going to be about it. Take you into Friday, same situation. No rain. You see a little bit of a disturbance giving us some clouds, but that's it. No rain or thunderstorms in the forecast for your Saturday. We'll take a look at the long range here going all the way through next week. That's next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But check this out. There's a swirling area of low pressure that's going to come down from the north. And there's also some of this monsoon moisture coming in. So with a combination of both of those, we can't rule out some shower and thunderstorm activity here toward the end of next week into that next weekend. Okay, so this is a long ways out. A lot will happen between now and then, but it is a pattern worth watching. But at least until then, we're going to be thunderstorm free. Here's that temperature trend I was talking about. So we've got temperatures in the mid to upper 90s at least through next Thursday. And remember, I was talking about toward the end of next week, we're seeing that area of low pressure come down from the north, bring us a chance for showers and thunderstorms. That's when we're also seeing a nice dip in the temperatures here when we do see those chances for rain, especially in the mountains, but even the valley could see some of that activity. All right, so here's what it looks like for today. Yeah, temperatures in the low to mid 90s in the valley, 94 for Redding, 92 for Chico. Lots of sunshine really across the board. As mentioned, there may be a couple of puffy cumulus clouds in the mountains, but for the most part, lots of sunshine. Look for a high of 87 degrees for Hayfork, 86 out in Weaverville, 81 out in Ayden and Bernie, about 83 degrees. So we look at your 7-day outlook. We're going to take a look at Mount Shasta City, and there you can see temperatures mid to upper 80s. For El Turris, mid to upper 80s. For Susanville, you get the idea here. We're really not seeing much change here for the mountains here. Temperatures generally between 85 and 90 degrees. Looking at your 7-day outlook for Redding, Red Bluff, and Chico, looks like in the mid to upper 90s for those daytime highs. No rain, no thunderstorms in the forecast, no major heat waves either. So it looks like about 97 on Monday for both Redding and Red Bluff, Chico about 95, and just kind of, again, hovering somewhere in the mid 90s, give or take.